Hey guys, welcome back to another video, and today I'm going to build a hybrid. I've built lots of stuff before, but most of them involve adapters. So today this is just a straight up build, start to finish. I've got some ferrules which I'm going to ream. I've got a shaft, I've got a prep, I've got an inside of a hosel, I've got a prep. I'm going to weigh all the components. I'm going to do it all right here in front of you to show you how it's done, and then hopefully you'll have some good luck when you're putting some clubs together. So let's flip over. Hi. Okay, so here we have essentially everything I'm going to need to build a golf club. I've got my club head, my hybrid shaft. I got a bunch of ferrules, but I'm just going to use one of them. Actually, I'm going to use a nice little fun purple one here. See that? I know I've talked about it before, but I'm going to ream the ferrule because it is a ferrule designed for a taper hosel. So I'm going to show you again how to do that. I've got the brush to clean out the hosel. I've got my knife here to prep the golf shaft. I've got the epoxy. I'm going to mix it. This is going to be start to finish gluing this thing up, and then that's it. All right, so let's get started. First things first, let's weigh the epoxy out. This is a 2-part epoxy with a 1 to 0.7 ratio. So I'm going to mix 1.7 grams of epoxy. I'm going to tare my scale. I've got everything ready to go. So part A goes down, just like a bottle of ketchup. This is where the chemistry is important, because the more accurate you have this mix, the stronger the bond is going to be. So I've got the 1 gram. Always put the lid on your epoxy. Keep your workspace nice and clean. 1.5, 1.6. Let the scale settle up. A little dab. One more time, 1.7, there we are. Easy peasy. Epoxy can go away. Scale, don't need it. I'm gonna check the components really quick. I have an expected weight. There I expect to see it, 228. Oh, it's a longer hybrid. It is a 16 degree, so it's designed to play basically the longest hybrid you're gonna get, unless you can find one of those old 14 degree ones out there. Gonna mix this up. You don't want to whip it. I know I've talked about that before, but you don't want to get air into the epoxy. You just want to mix it nice and slow. It's really easy. Couple minutes, just a minute or two, or like I always kind of count to like 20 stirs, and then I want to let it sit. The reason I do the epoxy first is because I want it to sit as long as possible, to not necessarily set right away, because it is a longer set epoxy anyways. I have about 30 minutes of work time, but I want it to thicken up a little bit. Now this is, my shop is roughly like 20 degrees, which is I think like 68 degrees Celsius, Fahrenheit, I guess. And then so it's not going to get super like wet, but it's definitely going to be sticky. Want to make sure that I get it mixed nice and well. Get a nice little clump going on. And that's it. So that's done. Epoxy set aside for now. Then next step is going to be clean the hosel and check the hosel of this hybrid. So I've got my parallel little wire brush here. You can see that. Put it into the drill. And then just clean it. This is a new hybrid. It's never been shafted. I just happen to have it kind of kicking around. But you can see the light kind of gets in there. Nothing. No, it's there. You go. Nice and clean. Got the weight. That's checked. It's good to go. So that's prep. My epoxy is now set to go. Now there's just a few more things that I have to really worry about when I'm putting a single club together. Now that is one, that the ferrule is going to fit. So this shaft, which is a even flow hybrid shaft, it is 370, and this just barely gets over the tip. It's not going to fit. If I go to put that on all the way, it's going to crack, and then it's going to waste more time, and I'm going to have to clean it up. So what I'm going to do is take the brush off because I don't need it anymore. Hosel is nice and clean. I'm going to use this reaming bit. Normally you use it for taper irons to get them to parallel, but you can definitely use it for ferrules. I've done this a lot. Sometimes you can wear gloves. Like I said, I've done it quite a bit, so it's not something that I'm really afraid to do, but it's something to be careful when doing, that's for sure. Well, that was definitely not 370 because a lot of plastic came out of there. There we go. Just turn a taper ferrule into a parallel ferrule because I want it to look good. Now this is the Boyd Blade and Ferrule Co. Again, typically for an iron, but it's going to match some of my irons, so just for fun, I'm going to use one of those. I know I mention them every time. If you watched a few of the videos, I've definitely mentioned the Boyd Blade and Ferrule Co. before. It's all I use, honestly. I want something that looks great, also performs well, and works, is easy to work with. And for me, they are just the easiest ferrules to work with. They look fantastic. They come in a ton of colors, and it's really just a matter of a quality thing for me. Just because, again, I want something to look cool. I want it to be easy to work with, and when you use quality components, have it be a shaft or a club head, epoxy, it doesn't really matter. Grips, grip tape, every component that is of quality, you're going to benefit from the end of the line, and you're going to get a better build. Now, the shaft is not prepped yet. Now, there's a couple ways to do this. What I like to do is I don't want to go too far above where the hosel is, usually about, I don't know, a 1/4 inch. So roughly, take a look at that, about 1.25 inches, maybe 1.5 inches, 1 3/8. There we go. We'll get our fractions right eventually. And then I'm just going to start prepping with a knife. There are, I know it's kind of annoying, but there are different ways to do it. There are faster ways to do it. By all means, you can use a sanding belt. I don't like to do it with one club, and kind of like how I was taught originally was to never use a sanding belt on graphite. Now, there's a reason I learned like that, and that was because they didn't want you to screw up and wreck a graphite shaft. If you're using the proper belt, it's actually quite easy to use just a normal sanding belt, or one that's of a lighter grit, or not as coarse grit, sorry. And then for me, the biggest thing is with the paint, you want to get a nice even it's okay if there's a little paint. This is one of those things, it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, but you want it to look nice and tidy, because if you try and glue and you get it onto the paint, the bond's not going to be quite as well. You want it to actually bond to the graphite fibers of the shaft. Okay. You see I took off quite a lot of paint there. Now, I have been sitting, so I'm just going to move my stool out of the way. And here we have a prepped graphite shaft. This is prepped. Glue is ready to go. I've got my ferrule, got my club head. Now, the other thing you want to do is, I know this is clean because I've actually already cleaned it before, but as far as the shaft here goes, there can be oil from where I've touched it with my hands, if there was anything on the knife before. So what I like to use is just a bit of acetone on that blue shop rag. See this? There you go. Didn't seem like much, but that's actually quite important because it makes sure that this is absolutely clean. Someone asked in a previous video, I know I'm kind of talking, but someone asked in a previous video if the acetone has any effect on the resin, and it doesn't. It evaporates very quickly. It's not like it's soaking in there, so it's not a problem for any long-term effects or short-term effects on the graphite. And then from this point on, it's all about just properly gluing it. So let's do that. Got the epoxy. The other thing too, a lot of questions that often come up is for shafting beads. There's not a lot of play in this. You can kind of hear it, maybe you can see it a little bit. There's just a touch. So because it's not perfectly snug and I don't have to ram it in there, I'm going to use just a bit. Now, the one, it's not really a rule of thumb. You can measure out mass, but what I like to do is just because I don't necessarily need them for the ferrule because it's already going to be a nice snug fit. And there we go, beautiful. What I want to do now is get the ferrule on there without the shafting beads. It's already, like I said, a very, very snug fit, and I don't have to worry about anything going on before. You can see right there, got a little bit of shaft exposed, so it's already all the way through. I got my blue shop towel pre-ripped for cleaning epoxy. The more you clean beforehand, the less you have to clean after the fact. So I always like to clean the top here, so as I push it on, I eliminate any epoxy, but there's still epoxy between there that's going to make sure that it gets on anyways. It'll wrap around, hopefully you can see this. I'm going to push it on. I've almost got it, so I'm going to give it a little tap. And that is the sound of a snug fit. All the way to the bottom of the hosel. Now, as I said, I'm going to talk about some of those shafting beads. I'm just going to set that down. Right there. Just a little bit. That's all I need. It's like adding a little bit of salt to your meal after, I guess. Not a ton. There's already some epoxy on there. That's also all you need for epoxy. It's just kind of like the size of a pea on the end. It's plenty. Ensure a proper coating. One more little check. And as I said, the more you clean before, the less you have to clean after. So what I like to do is just before I finish putting it all together, I want to make sure any excess around the top of the hosel. Now, this is especially important because this is a black finished head. If it's chrome or it's satin, you can easily sand it. You don't have to worry too much about it, but because of the black, you go to sand it afterwards, you can actually start removing the finish, and I don't want to do that because then it looks uneven, and that's a telltale sign of I probably wasn't doing something right in the first place. Now, just again, to make sure that less work after the fact and I don't end up ruining any of the finish on this hybrid, I'm going to use the acetone again and just clean up that little edge. See, there's no gap. There is some overlap, which I will take care of after the fact when I go to turn the ferrule down, but other than that, it's nice and snug. It's not going anywhere. It's at the bottom of the bore because we tapped it in, and that's it. So I'm going to set it up, and that's how you build a hybrid, an iron, a wedge, any club that doesn't have, any club that doesn't have an adapter that has a ferrule already in it. That's how you go through the process of making sure, there we go. And that's how you go through the process of making sure that it's going to fit properly. You've hit the bottom of the hosel, you've checked your epoxy, and you've got a snug fit, and you've got the ferrule working correctly. If you have any questions, please use the comment section. If you like the video, I know it's a longer one, but it's one that I wanted to make sure that I went start to finish. I didn't cut anything. I just went through the process of building a golf club. So if you have any questions, please use the comment section. I'm happy to answer them. And as always, thanks so much for watching.